from idea and concept to prototype. So as we usher ourselves from the challenges and from that heady space into the space where we're actually thinking about building and what we might want to build, that's what this session is about. So to kick that off, we have a really exciting panel. It is focused on, and maybe I'll invite that panel up, with Steven Friedman, who's the president of MTV, Rachel Chong, who's the president of Catchafire, Mindy Tarlow, who's the CEO of Center for Employment Opportunities, and Raymond Georges, who is a client of CEOs. Now, so we're going to structure this as like a little bit of a dinner conversation. We're called The Feast, and we're starting to walk into the food metaphors a little bit. So we're doing this sort of as a roundtable. And the way that it'll work is we'll have sort of like a roundtable conversation. The theme of the conversation is about partnership. And we'll talk, pretty casually, and then at some point there are 2 mics up here. If anybody wants to come up and join the conversation with a question, please just, when I'll mention it out to the crowd, feel free to step up, take a seat, and join. And then when you're done with your question or with a little bit of conversation, we just ask that you please step down to make room for someone else. So again, the focus of this conversation is really around partnership. And in particular, as a grounding, we're looking at one pretty unique partnership that was created among all of the stakeholders here. Basically, so Catchafire, Rachel Chong is the CEO, and it's a really amazing company that basically takes volunteers or works with companies to have really skilled, amazing people, designers, developers, marketing people, and matches them with organizations that really need those skills and services. It's a really innovative model, and they've been doing partnerships with lots of organizations, for example, MTV. So they created this partnership where they did a talent search, and they scouted the country for nonprofits who could really benefit from the skills of people like the kinds of people who work at MTV, who are really brilliant at marketing, at video, at all of these great skills. And that's something that we talk about a lot at The Feast, right? Is like, how could you actually leverage your skills to change the world? Instead of just planting trees on the weekend, how could you, as a strategist, help the strategy like an organization like CEO? Or how could you, as a videographer, help tell the story of an organization like CEO? And to give you a little bit of a sense about what CEO does, Center for Employment Opportunities. They work with formerly incarcerated individuals to help them get back on their way. It's a huge issue if you are incarcerated and you come out of the system. It's really hard to find a job, to have that on your record. And so there's a real partnership between CEO and their clients to help them as they transition and to believe in them, trust in them to find work and come back. And here we have Raymond Georges, super excited, who is a client of CEO, who has come back from prison and worked with them to gain employment. Super exciting to have him here as one of the stakeholders too. So this conversation, again, is exploring through looking at how this partnership worked, how we might understand partnership as a whole, and how we might create them better over the course of the next day as we create our solutions. So with that, I figure I should just start this. We should just like pretend to be eating.
Dinner with no food.
So, I mean, basically, Justin, you had a really great question earlier, or thought, and that is, I think in a lot of partnerships, the reason that they work is that there's the right buy-in, right? There's the right incentive structure for all of the different groups who are participating. And I'd love to, it really seems like a really beautiful partnership, aligned incentives that all of you created. And so I guess the first thought, and to kick off this conversation, is if you could sort of elaborate and share a little bit about maybe how that happened, how that alignment works in your partnership. And I know, Rachel, you sort of kicked this off as the CEO of Catchafire, making this match, essentially. So if you could share a little bit about, how that worked and why it worked, that would be really great.
Sure. Well, I think you did a really good job of explaining who we are, Jerry, so thank you. So as Jerry said, what we do at Catchafire is we match organizations that have specific needs to talented individuals. In the case of MTV and CEO, it was first Stephen and I, we met and we were just brainstorming, and in fact, both of us together were like, hey, there's an opportunity here where we have talent, MTV has talent, and Catch a Fire knows organizations that need talent. Why don't you help us find the best organization that we can make over, true MTV style? And so, with Catch a Fire's portfolio of thousands of organizations, we helped to structure a program so that MTV and CEO could find each other. And also, very importantly, in terms of your point of aligning interests, we needed to make sure that the communication between the for-profit sector and the nonprofit sector was smooth. And so we at Catch a Fire also do a lot to help prepare both parties so that when they come together, the experience is a successful one and an efficient one.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of that communication challenge is just context, from these different sectors can be really interesting and at times really challenging. I'm curious though, sometimes it can often be really empowering, and I'm curious, Mindy, what your thoughts were on that process and, the how that worked, the communication or working with like the different types of communication and the different types of skills that were coming to you. What was that like, and how was it helpful or how was it challenging?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's great to be at something like this. When you do the work that we do, you don't get to be at forums like this and really talk to people about what it really means for someone to come home from prison and try to reintegrate into their community, and how hard it is to get other people to really care about that. And I think the thing that attracted MTV to CEO, there was lots of people they could have helped, was that we were doing something that really mattered, but we were a little struggling to get our story out there, and just make it real for people and make it really matter to people. And so it wasn't just like any old skills that they could bring to bear. It was really the skills that we needed about just upping our game. We had some great materials, and I think in a lot of respects, they helped us use what we have. And just, these are your assets. These photos are amazing. These clients, which you'll soon find out, are amazing. And you need to be able to tell your story better and make that emotional connection. And so it wasn't just like throwing the kitchen sink at us. It was really carefully mapping what we had and how we could best use it in a way that was really lasting. And we can talk more about that kind of as our conversation continues. But I also want to say the partnership was at the most senior level on both sides. And Stephen Friedman, in fact, came to CEO, sat in a classroom full of folks just like Raymond, and really got into their stories and really spent the time with them. And he's the president of MTV, you know what I mean? I mean, my buy-in is not really the issue here, it's more, if you get my meaning, it's more like, how do you get someone like that kind of person to really come in and really care and really get into it? And, it was just an extraordinary experience when it was happening. Yeah. And I think it's still, we still have some work to do, but I think there's been a legacy that's already been created that has sort of changed the way we think about how you get people to care about what we do, because that's really what it's about, is building stakeholders, building interest, connecting people emotionally to what we do. Right.
And I mean, I'm super curious, especially for the leadership that's in the room. I mean, to learn from you, how and why you were able to dedicate that time to this project, and what it was like, to, again, why. I mean, I'm super curious of all the things, to work on. I think that there's a lot of learning from other leadership in the room around that, and also what that did for the partnership, what that meant to the other people who are working at MTV, who did work on the project, and maybe share a little bit about, internally, those who worked on it, what it was like for them.
Right. Listen, it was a huge opportunity for the staff, because I think what we've seen when we talk to our audience, millennials, is that the vast majority, 80–90% of them, want to be engaged with a company that is doing good as well as doing well. And they don't think it should be either or. And so to give our staff, the majority of them millennials, the opportunity to address an opportunity or a challenge outside of their day-to-day was something that the team that got to work on it felt like they'd won the lottery. I mean, I was bummed out to let certain people know that they didn't. And you think about what CEO has done so incredibly, and seeing and sitting and feeling it, this notion of a second chance is something that you see on what we do with artists in our shows. That's something that deeply resonates, and so the opportunity to help them, who they were already telling the story, but crystallize it and also take it into social media realm was incredibly moving for our staff, and I think developed a skill set broader than what they were focused on day to day. So for us, it was an incredible opportunity, and I think we came away richer as a result of the experience.
Can I just comment on this, because I think it's actually really important. It's not, Catch a Fire, we have spoken with dozens, probably hundreds of companies at this point. Since this year, we've started to work directly with them. And this, still today, and it's 2014, and it should be common, but it's still not. And MTV really were pioneers in demonstrating through action, through Steven's time and through the team's time, that this is something that makes sense to the bottom line. Meaning that if it makes employees more excited to be at work, if it makes employees proud of the brand, if it makes employees want to tell their friends that MTV is the best place to work at, it absolutely makes sense, particularly when we have a war on talent and only 17% of millennials in the workforce today are engaged at their jobs. So this is the case, and to us it's a no-brainer, but the reality is that this is still very new.
Yeah. And I think that, it's really incredible, and I want to get to the story a little bit at some point, that you were able to, or the MTV was able to share out of CEO's work, because it is a really powerful one. And I'm curious, how that partnership helped refine that story. And also, maybe hearing a little bit from you, Raymond, about the experience, both as far as, being someone who's part of CEO. What is it like what does this partnership, or this kind of partnership, mean for you? The fact that, there are so many incredible people, everybody even here, and Steven, invested in your coming back. What is that like?
It really touches home, knowing that this could change my whole community and people that I grew up with, because we really don't know that people out there really trying to help us. It took me 6 months to get employed, and I got employed through CEO, and every day going to job fairs and applying for applications and going networking, none of that helped. But knowing that people like myself, who was formerly incarcerated, don't have to do certain things that they did in the past, knowing that MTV gonna advertise that people out there do care, do want to give us a second chance, not looking down upon us, So that really just, it's gonna change my whole community and my life.
So I think something that's really powerful about that is that when people think of mentors, because essentially that's what you're offering by leveraging the MTV staff and exposing them to the CEO clients, is that everyone thinks it's oh, I need Steven to be my mentor. It's well, there's way more accessible people. Everything is on a relative scale, and it's about having appropriate mentors, and it's also, empowering to the staff to think listen, we have selected you guys because you are so good at what you do. That's why you're working here, and we're so proud of kind of your intellectual prowess that we want to transfer that on to people that need it. And so, do you feel, how did you go about selecting the teams, and did you measure the impact, afterwards? And I would imagine a lot of people have said, hey, can we do this again or do something else like this?
They have. I think for us, it was really how we can be most impactful, because I think we thought, let's think about, we had a lot of preconceived notions on how we could help. The best thing, though, we could do is spend time down there and listen and learn, because they are experts, and we've worked on a bunch of issues, whether it's voting, whether it's sexual health, whether it's Darfur, and we're not the experts. I think that's why the partnership worked, because we listened to the experts down there, heard from the incredible stories of young people who are transforming their lives, and that then enabled us to understand, all right, social, was a real opportunity to change and to figure out how you connect with a much broader audience, the importance, that message of a second chance. So I think it really, the details came from them, and then we picked the team. And I think if we did it again, we'd go in an entirely different area, but again, it would be dependent on what the nonprofit thinks is most useful.
Yeah, and I just want to comment on all of that, actually, because everything that you said, Rachel, is true for CEO as well. You know, we picked people to be on this team, you know, at the most senior level, and it had the same sort of effect. Like, I am excited to tell my friends that I'm working on a project at CEO with MTV, with the president came to our organization, right? That's such a powerful thing, and you want people to be, just like you said, proud of the brand, you know, excited to come to work. It really, and everybody was so incredibly nice to us, which made me sort of sad, just that, like, wow, why am I so surprised that all these people are being really nice, you know? It's like, I guess I get yelled at a lot, you know? But the thing about it, and I also want to say something about partnership, right? So this is a partnership, but this is a partnership. You know, we are working together. Raymond and all the folks just like him, and me and all the folks just like me at CEO are working together in partnership. It's the same thing. Tell me what you need, and we will do the best we can to give you what you need. And it's the same sort of idea about communication and respect and buy-in, you know, all those things. Like, this is a partnership too. And the last thing I want to say, because you asked before about, you know, what is it that's changed, or what is it that's so hard about the message? Because on some levels it's really easy. We do one thing with one group of people. We get people with criminal convictions jobs, period, end of story. But there's so many different facets to that, like that the United States incarcerates more people than any place else in the world. And it costs about $70 billion a year. And it doesn't work, and most people coming home don't have a job, and most people need a job, and we provide that job, and we work, and we proved it. So not only are we changing lives one Raymond at a time, where we're changing it one city at a time, one state at a time, and in addition to the benefits, the social benefits, we save a ton of money, right? So right there, you take those little messages, and then you work with, you know, a great organization and experienced people at MTV, and they helped us just make those messages one at a time, really clearly, with the images and people to back it up, and that's how you get your story out there.
And I want to just invite, because we were running low on time, but maybe someone to the stage if you have a question while you speak your
And I
thought.
think Raymond
If anybody
wanted to
wants
get in
to
again,
come on
too, if
stage
that's
and ask
okay.
anything or contribute.
I actually just want to comment on your point that, you know, you're pointing out that this is a relationship. Obviously, this is a relationship,
Right.
And the four of us
Right.
a relationship, and that, you know, with you guys, you also brought the best to the table, and I
That's
think
exactly
that
right.
actually that's a really important thing to bring up, is that you guys are the biggest name in the room. It's natural for us to be like, oh my goodness, MTV's in the room. But I think the most important thing about building great partnerships is that there's some sort of equality, meaning that we all are gaining and everyone is
Right, don't you
equal
think
around the
so?
table. And despite the fact that you have the biggest brand, I think that, you know, in observing the meetings between CEO and MTV, it was very equal. The respect from your team was the exact same as the respect from your team, and I think that that's kind of huge.
Hi, my name is Kippy Joseph. I work at the Rockefeller Foundation, and thank you all for doing this session, and to the Feast for engaging us all in such a robust agenda. I'm up here because I wanted to ask about unlikely bedfellows, and it seems in many cases that if you asked who's the natural partner for CEO, it wouldn't be MTV and vice versa. Mindy and I are involved in another structure that puts unlikely bedfellows together. It's called a social impact bond, and we're happy to tell you more about that later, but that pairs for-profit financial institutions or investors with organizations that have proven methodologies to achieve social good, and allows a city or a state to offer a financial return to those investors out of savings that they accrue from great programs doing what they do best. So I wanted to ask you all about how do you find unlikely bedfellows? Because so many of us in this room know that innovation comes from that intersection and that interplay between disciplines or sectors, but we don't really know how to go about finding those opportunities.
Well, this is like the emergence of what they're calling the fourth sector, right? So.
I mean, it's why we built Catch a Fire, is because we actually don't think that they should be unlikely bedfellows. In fact, we think that they should be jumping into bed together. But the reality is that it's actually pretty darn hard for them, to your point, to find each other. So the solution for us is actually pretty easy. It's a technology platform, and we help people who have skills and who want to volunteer those skills. I used to be a banker, and I desperately wanted to volunteer my financial skills, and there was no easy infrastructure for me to find a Mindy or for me to find whatever nonprofit or social good organization there was. And so I think that with technology today, in finding easy ways for people to just literally connect, and it's not that easy, but that's the first step. And I think really there, the magic happens. With Catch a Fire, we were after the initial setup, we stepped back, and these two found that they actually would have just loved to jump into bed together, and it's not unlikely at all. So.
Right, you heard it here first. But I also think it lifts the game when you can put it out there. What I was saying before. CEO reduces crime, CEO saves money. You would think in the tough economic times we have that my door would be beaten down, but it wasn't, because people don't know me, and they don't know Raymond, and they don't know our story. Right? Mm-hmm. Don't you think?
Yeah, help us find employment, housing. They helped me pay back almost all my loans that I owe from college. It's beyond beneficial. It's not just employment. It made me a different person, and it showed people I could be a different person. So that's why I think that this exposure is going to be beneficial for everybody.
Exactly, and that's how it doesn't become a strange bedfellow, that it becomes a sort of common thing to do. Because the reason that I believe, and you have to be sort of an optimist when you're in the kind of work that we're in, I believe that if people really understood it, what it both meant to people like Ray, or what it means to the economy, what it means to community safety in general, who wouldn't want to buy that product? We're a tough thing to sell, but if and MTV did it for us, and I think can do it for lots of others as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that especially with young people and millennials, their level of expertise and insight, they want to translate that to their job, but also to their volunteer efforts. And it's why I think Catch a Fire uniquely was able to create that bridge to do exactly what you're saying, because our staff they are happy to volunteer in a soup kitchen. They do that as well. But I think the idea of using their secret sauce, something they hone every day on a challenging, knotty, complicated issue,
Great point.
kind of enlarges their possibility of what they can do. And it's a hopeful generation that's looking for those opportunities.
So we're already 4 minutes over, and I know that it's a long day, but if you could just keep it really quick. Yeah.
First of all, I know I saw the video that you did, and it was really inspiring. My question is more towards you, Stephen. Really inspired contact, and you mentioned an amazing statistic that shows that most millennials are interested in this. Question is this going to be a more long-standing thing? Is there going to be more content on such an influential network as MTV to push towards kids in social innovation, kids in thinking about that way, and millennials in general? Or is this more of just a one-time kind of connection?
Well, no, I think ongoing. I think we're always looking. Act.mtv.com is a place where we're looking for innovation, specifically around social good. And it's something Jason Rezepka, who's here, oversee it, he and his team. But I think activism is being redefined by this generation. And so we're always looking for those models that are engaging in ways that I don't think any of us would thought to know how. So it is something we do and focus on. And I think this was a project we did internally, and we'll do others, but I think it is both on the channels and also for our staff, because I think it benefits both, so we will continue.
Great. Thank you so much. I feel for all my speakers now, because that flew by, but thank you so much to everybody for joining this conversation. Really insightful for you.